Port respond, and the Blues go meekly into the night.
They do indeed. They will record their 7th win of the year, Port Adelaide. They have to be pretty perfect in the run home from here to secure a spot in the 8. It's highly unlikely. And on their home turf, they give the Blues a nice old scene too.
Alrighty, hello, welcome to the CREEDCAST. My name's Dave, and as always, thank you for joining us. And we're bloody stoked to be with you on this chilly Tuesday evening as your Port Adelaide Power did the business on Thursday night, hitting a destabilised and demoralised Carlton Footy Club, much like the Allied forces hit the destabilised and demoralised forces of the Italian army as they landed on the beaches of Sicily in July of 1943, taking just a little over a month to drive the Axis powers off the island, regain control of the Mediterranean and knock the Italians out of the war. It felt like Thursday was a similarly swift and decisive campaign by Port Adelaide, winning 16-14, 110 to 8-12-60, and likely putting the final nail in the coffin of the Carlton campaign in the war that is this 2025 season. Jamie, good evening. It's a cold one, but it bloody warms the cockles when you're just thinking back to Thursday night. It feels like a while ago now, being that it was at the start of the last weekend, but thinking about that first half in particular has got me feeling nice and warm.
Hello, Dave, and hello, everyone else. Yeah, it does seem like so long ago, and I sent a message to you last night. I'm like, I'm kind of itching to record already because I had a meeting that fell through. But yeah, stick to our usual Tuesday night spot. But yeah, like I said to you, like I think I put out there on Twitter, like it was just good to have a good night at the football again and just seeing our boys play good footy against what was honestly a pretty hapless opposition, particularly in that first half. But playing the team in front of you is nice, and it's nice to go to a home game with an emphatic win again.
Yeah, I've been saying all year, like in various episodes of various times on the podcast, those that listen regularly will probably recognise it, that, and you and I have had these discussions in person as well, like we just haven't had very much comfort in any of our wins this year, even though we have won a decent amount of games now, not enough yet, obviously, as far as the finals battle is concerned, but it's not like we're, sitting there at 2-15 or whatever. We are winning games here and there, but they're often fraught with danger, apart from the Richmond one. This is the first weekend, Thursday night, but the first round since round 2 against Richmond where we've truly, from quarter time onwards, I didn't have much discomfort. Obviously, at quarter time, it was only a 5-goal lead. We quickly blow that out to getting towards 50 points by halftime. But it just, you could see it straight away, the way the game was going. Like, Carlton didn't have it in, like, eye test of what Carlton were doing. They didn't have it in them to be able to turn around. Like, we quickly worked out the Wiedering. We knew Wiedering was going to be hampered. We quickly
Underdone.
We quickly saw that Mitch was going to have his way in that forward line. And then we quickly saw the centre bounce setup was pretty good, and Bergman was not sick and was back to his merry best as far as that goes. Defensively, we were, I think Charlie Curnow had an okay night, but like our structure was okay that we could mitigate, and he was obviously wayward as far as his kicking goes. He still had an influence in the game, just probably didn't have the damage. But, just every facet, before we get to the lines, we can just say as a whole, every line kind of worked together and had a plan. And yes, the insipid nature of how Carlton came out does help, but we put it to them. I mean, we were insipid the week before. Maybe it's because we were sick. I know Patrick Cripps was sick the day before the game, so who knows what level that had on it. But if they're named and they're out there, you have to go with what you've got. We copped it the week before, unfortunately, but both teams coming off a pretty horrible loss in questions being asked. We were the only ones that answered the questions, which I find just as a whole really, really warming to me, even if it is, the season is still on a tender hook, but you can only go on that. And yeah, a wonderful, wonderful Thursday night of footy.
I agree. Yeah, and like I've said a few times, you got to show pride in your jumper, and we're still in it. As ridiculous as it sounds, it's a far-fetched proposition, but yeah, we talk about elite sports teams just having to fight the good fight for as long as they possibly can, and what they did on Thursday night went exactly with that theme.
Hmm.
It's pleasing to watch, and we're now again seeing a better selected squad play in our given match now, and
Hmm.
if not our last couple, a flu or a head cold put aside. So yeah, excuse me, potentially showing a little bit of fight in the second half of the season and shaking up. If we're not going to make it, which it's likely we won't, if we can just shake up the rest of the competition, and we get to see some emergence and some further steps forward from some players, that's all we can really ask for. But playing for your jumper is important, and seemingly we did, and Carlton, with their season on the line, just didn't rock up.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to, before we get to the lines, there's a few things I want to touch on. One, it's a minor and it's just funny, and but how did you rate I mean, Ken not being on the boundary was one of the first, for the first time for over, almost 2.5 years really. It was what that after the untenable stuff in 2023 that change happened, and
Yeah, yeah.
a long time ago now. And then he not only goes to the coach's box, but he's at the back.
Yes. Just pulling up a couch, just about like almost has a bag of Doritos, just munching away.
Mhm.
Oh, if anything, Ken Hinkley has definitely, yeah, thrown some curveballs and given us a few chuckles along the way, that's for sure. But any theory that anyone wants to go with, I'm buying into all of them.
Yeah.
If it is a calculated decision and that further handing over the baton to Josh Carr, I'm all for that. If what he said in, I think it was the post-match presser, that there comes a time where sometimes you have to change things up,
Hmm.
see how people react. I'm also all for that too. So, um, my initial thoughts were there's a third of the season left. I'm leaning more towards the calculated, but that only goes towards my opinion throughout the season that Josh Carr's already doing more than what they're letting on.
Hmm.
So I'm kind of confirming my own bias with that opinion, that it's calculated. But I mean, yeah, Ken decided after how many years to go down to the bench to change things up. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was just as simple as that, but we'll never really truly know.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those things that if you ever do get more light shone on it, it'll be a fair ways down the track where Ken's gone from the coaching job, and people can look back with misty eyes and talk about something that's going on that is not going to affect anything that's going on now, but they certainly don't want to. They're going to hold their cards close to their chest while they're actually still competing for points, and he's in the job, and he it kind of leads me to the other point I wanted to bring up. He was interviewed I watched a fair bit of when I was watching the replay, the lead in with Fox Footy the hour prior that was available, and they had him on early on in the telecast on Fox Footy on Thursday night and asked him a few questions, and he was talking about his excitement about the season, the end that's coming, but more about the excitement of what's happening in between. Like he's attacking the rest of the season with a little bit of a different mindset because of his excitement, like the fact that there isn't a deadline in play, and it also leads to they then asked him about Jack Lukosius and his availability, and Ken
Yeah.
let slip. Well, he didn't let slip. He was pretty open about it that he very very much considered bringing Lukosius in for Thursday night's game. So he must be. I mean, he played in the SANFL, obviously, so he's fit enough to play footy. But it was actually very, very close to playing in the AFL side. And it was basically he went in Wednesday morning and said, "No, let's not do it." And he said, "There's a part of me that wanted to bring him in for the immediate needs, but he was like looking to the future of the club. And this is a future that now is a deadline without him. We know that the very, very near future, as soon as next year, is going to be without Ken Hinkley as part of the coaching structure and staff, or in any part of Port Adelaide, we assume, as far as an official capacity, he'll always have a place there as far as his history. But I thought that was a really, when you compartmentalize that with the coaching box change, you can just see there's little things that he's obviously he's got to care for the future. Some people with the cynicism may not think that, but I think if he was looking for just to get everything he could out of this season and didn't care much for the future, he might have thrown Lukosius in, but he had a calculated look towards it and thought, no, he needs to give him a run in the sandful and go with what we've got. And look, it ultimately worked. I mean, if you look at Vicentini as the second tall, that we'll get to the lines more in depth before, apart from his misses, like the lineup worked. So, I just thought that was really interesting from Ken. A few different things about the night, about where Ken's mindset is at, kind of were highlighted both in what he said and then what he did as well, I think, just from how I read the tea leaves.
Yeah, it's got to be one of the more fluid seasons in terms of decision making and magnet shifting than probably I've ever seen, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, whose influence is that? Again, we'll probably never really truly know. But it's refreshing in a way when a lot of this season has been disappointing for some reasons. It's also, if you really want to strip it back, it has shown promise in other aspects of the year. And the emergence of different players in different positions and just the willingness to attempt them. And like you said, Ken changed his mind. If you take him on his word, he changed his mind with a long-term view that Jack Lukosius is going to be a long-term proposition. So there's no point to rush him back any sooner than he needs to. And we've certainly copped criticism for some decisions to the opposite of that as well. So refreshing all the same. I take him on his word. We traded out a couple of good players at the end of 2018 with a long-term view, and that didn't necessarily guarantee anything. But again, if you take Ken's word on it, he wasn't going to stand in the way of the club and its list management strategy in that situation. So when it comes to this more recent example, it doesn't surprise me. But that insight was good. And because it was Thursday, we have a bit more time to obviously, watch that pre-game interview, which I did. I skipped over the Michael Voss one, to be honest, though. But it's nice. Yeah. Poor Vossi. He's getting enough people talking about him. We don't need to. So, no, to wrap it up in a bow, I was refreshed by that pre-game interview and just Ken and his coaching overall this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think you can just see there's that change in him as the year's gone on, as far as how he's kind of metabolizing what's occurring as we get closer and closer to the end for him as the senior coach of the Port Adelaide Football Club. And look, long may it continue. I mean, we'll talk about some midfield stuff soon when we get to that line, because that'll probably where the Josh Carr stuff comes into a bit more focus, because it was there's a lot to talk about with the midfield, but we'll tease that forward a little bit. But we'll start with the defense as we usually do. Really, I mean, it feels like we're just going, it's nice to actually be going forward from the defense afterwards when we get to the other lines and talk about more positivity down the line. But again, the defense holds up, stands up, does its job. Pretty happy with everyone. Cool. Wrap it in a bow. But obviously we'll talk more about there's little bits like Asava had his challenges on the night, but he ultimately stands up and gets coaches' votes. Alir and Zerk Thatcher, and the way they attributed to the upfield press, obviously a lot of our score came from the defensive side as well. I think our defensive transition to score was actually that's our main source of scoring. Just go down here, defensive half, it was 8-5 to 2-4 for score origin. So we really, and there's Rosie's influence on that was big, and as well as some others. And the press, there was a few times that Zerk Thatcher's a ball's tumbled forward from Carlton, and Zerk Thatcher's at almost the back half of the square and coming onto the ball and kind of keeping it in front of him, or Alir or Asava as well. They contributed pretty well in that press up the field. But when they had their battles, they probably aided by some waywardness by the likes of Kerno and whatnot. But I did say to you on the night that it's 2 weeks in a row that we've seen Asava do his fucking wavy arms inflatable tube man.
Tube man,
standing on the mark. He did it to Amadi last week with Amadi's infamous
Yeah.
game now, and there's a great shot.
Yeah, the ghost of Amadi passed. We're still sitting in the Adelaide Oval turf
Yeah.
for the opposition.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was like, what are the standouts for you? Because I think Asava's game was still the key pillar of our defense. To be honest, like it's crazy to think now with 3 weeks. I actually think I saw a stat. I think it's 4 weeks on the bounce now that he's had at least 11 intercepts, which only happened 2 times previous in the AFL. So it's just like he's actually on a it's crazy
On a
to say.
heater.
Oh, it's a generational run when you're talking about you're on a run of 4 weeks that only 2 others have done, and that's generational stuff.
Ever.
Yeah.
Basically what I say to that is sack Jason Cripps and Jeff Parker. I think I've said it before, but they don't know what they're doing. So fuck them. See you later. It's been real. No, but how pleasing it is, again, to support players where you just hope for the best, hope they put in the work, and then hope it comes to fruition. And yeah, the run of form that he's in is immaculate. And when you consider that, I thought Aaliyah, particularly for the first third of the season, was in All-Australian form in his own right, and I think we discussed it a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this transition has happened in this middle part of the season where Asava has just visibly and palpably become much more comfortable at the level in the system, in the unit that he plays within predominantly. Mm-hmm. And he's now allowing his AFL attributes to come to the fore more often than not. His marking, his body work, and with a generous hint of athleticism mixed in as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different players come in different shapes and sizes, different mental capabilities, and different motivations as well. You know, he's a confidence player. There's a plethora of people who you would chuck into the basket of confidence players. And again, there's different motivations behind each individual person. And some people need that, whatever it is, whether it just be purely comfort in the system, which is unlocking all of that, or just a good patch of form on a personal note, just perpetuating itself continuously. I definitely hope that continues. But fantastic. And with Aaliyah coming back, being able to ease back into AFL after that knee grumble.
Yeah.
Zerk Thatcher keeps getting it done. I'll bring contested defensive one-on-ones is definitely a statistic again that Radikalia and Zerk Thatcher featured in terms of numbers versus losses. It was quite good. I think it was 8 defensive one-on-ones between the two of them, and I think one of those contests was lost. So 7 wins out of 8 for those 2 defensive pillars is a credit to not only their loose assisting, like pressing up and intercepting, but their one-on-one work as well. So cheers Cripper for that one. But as well as that, when Kane Farrell and Lockie Jones are pressing up and getting intercept mark goals in the first quarter, you know it's a bit of a different night as well. So that goes along with your note off the top about pressing and positioning. And it must be said that while we did score out of the defensive half, Carlton made that easier because at stages they just looked like, they honestly looked like witches' hats and looked half-assed attempts at a lot of football actions. And when I watch the KO replay, I know you usually do too, and when you're putting up 165 on the pressure gauge, you're going to get beaten more often than not if you sustain that level or lack of level of pressure. Yeah,
because our pressure didn't even have to be that good. I think when they brought up the pressure gauge, we were only at like in the 170s, but
that's
hard to apply pressure when the other team just won't fucking have the ball anyway.
And when our transitioning was on song, that exemplifies your point.
Yeah,
like we didn't have to correct our own errors constantly. We made them pay more often than not, which again is a credit to how we prepared and how we executed on the night. Both things can be true at the same time.
Yeah. I actually meant to have a look at the pressure acts quickly before because I just didn't think it was like going to be like the biggest of numbers, and and looking at it as not. A lot of the leaders are Carlton players, and it's because they're having to chase tail. But it was the transition game was just it was. I mean, what makes it pleasing while you do it is it has to be said that, you know, as you said, Carlton were witches' hats. We've had games where a team has looked lacking and then we don't take advantage. We took brutal advantage in that first half just with kind of the setup of able to being out of transition, you know, Rosie being behind the ball again and again, that's great that we kind of, and we'll get to the midfield in a moment. I'm really itching to get there actually, but just as far as like getting Rosie a bit more behind the ball was really important. I think his rebound game, I think he had a massive 10 rebound 50s or something like that. And Farrell only had 5. It was really, Rosie was engaged in so much of that run and carry off a halfback, and he had some really dashing, pleasing runs where he just kind of did that Rosie, like just that, you know, that body step that he has and link up handball game. There was
agility test.
Yeah.
Type. Yeah, dodging and weaving through posts.
Mm-hmm. But our disposal was just really good as well. And that is just, and again, maybe low pressure does help. It's going to be a big test. I mean, that's cheating way forward, but a big test this week to see how that backs up. But you can only go on what, and it's a good, something to build on again. With the players that are with us getting more to a line of being fit rather than unfit as far as our injuries go as well. There's still a bit of a list, but we're starting to see our best side in the field. And in particular, it's like that old adage about you're only as good as your bottom 6 players. A lot of the bottom 6 guys, whoever you think they might be, in our side, and there's be arguments to be made about who they are now with some of the ones that had really great games. We were better because the bottom 6 were some of the better players on the field, and some of the highlight stars on the field were those bottom 6 guys. What you would predict them to be going in, don't end up being the kind of the bottom 6 on the stat sheet, so to speak. So I don't really. I want to get to the midfield, and we can harken back to the defense if there's anything, because we've talked, the Bergman stuff's been talked about a lot since the Adelaide game, and has, you know, kept on creeping and building, and maybe like last week was a little bit of an, you know, a
mulligan,
and as far as mulligan, as far as like, and then there's reasons for that apparently with him telling Isaac he's crook. But like his start in the midfield was incredible, and I had a note to look at how he set up at the centre bounce at the start of each quarter. And if you bear with me for a second, it was Bergman, Drew, and Butters with Sweet. Sweet was the ruckman at every centre, like pretty much every centre bounce, apart from a couple. Certainly at the start of each quarter, it was Bergman, Drew, and Butters at the start of the first quarter. Butters, HORNE-FRANCIS, and Bergman were at the start of the second quarter. Then it was Bergman, Drew, and Butters again at the start of the second half. Really interesting. Hugh Jackson got a few runs at the centre bounce in the last quarter.
He did,
but it was Butters and Bergman.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, but it was Butters and Bergman were the 2 that were there at every start of every quarter. Was those 2, and then it was either Drew or Hugh Jackson getting a couple. And Hugh Jackson did play as actually. I was really impressed with Hugh at the start of the fourth quarter, and a couple of his other actions. And Hugh had a great game actually overall. But
here's my spotlight actually.
Yes. I have a couple, but if you go with Hugh, I'll let you say a piece on him, and I'll get to mine when we get to him. But yeah.
Well, I've just listed it as Wolverine. So obvious reasons why. To remind myself, but
I'll make Kingy in the pregame.
Kingy, had quite a chuckle when he got pulled up on it in commentary as well on the carry replay. But just after being omitted the week before and then coming back in, bit of a strange sequence of selection there, because a lot of people probably didn't agree with him going out, because he showed signs, and then that first half in particular, really, he showed what he can offer at the top level, and his groundwork was fantastic. His crumbing was awesome. Often do I lament the lack of crumbing representation at stages throughout our games, particularly this year. So it was good to see him setting up in good positions. And and not taking a backward step either for a guy at, I think it was 182 centimeters, I believe is his height. He didn't really shirk anything on the night, and as a role player, as a guy with limited experience, it's all you can really ask for. He tapered off a little bit, but then, like you mentioned, in the last quarter, he actually got a lot more opportunity at centre bounce and whatnot, which again is a obviously long-term play in terms of development. So yeah, he deserves a highlight. He got highlighted in commentary a little bit because role players just sticking to task and making their moments count is all anyone ever asks for. And he definitely didn't let himself down in that regard.
Yeah, he was he's some of his intelligence in picking kicks or shots, and there was this great 5 minutes of play where, and I think it's a really important 5 minutes or so from about midway through the first quarter. It's right when Joe Richards did the dance steps when he gets called to play on, and he's on the wing there, and he just kind of like gets teased. It says
had a lot of spectators fretting that moment.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut in. There's a lot of people around me who were just like, get rid of it, and they were just like, yeah, he's playing the game.
Yeah,
bit of razzle dazzle.
We've talked about it a bit at times this year that he has this little, just his step. He's so quick with his feet that he's kind of like whether it be, I don't want to go too hyperbolic, but the great players of the world game in soccer, like whether that just have quick feet that make defenders second guess themselves because of they know. And Joe Richards has shown at different times this year, it's not the first time we've talked about his quick feet and how he kind of can shake people out of their boots because of how he moves. And he kind of got the defender to come onto him and just kept on using his feet, kept moving. He didn't stop. He kept moving. And the defender probably didn't know which way to cheat with it. And it's a good thing it wasn't Wiedering because he would have been even worse. His ankles would have been even worse. But he eventually got the defender to come onto him, whoever was standing the mark. And it ends up it eventually ends up in a Mitch Georgiades goal after, and Hugh Jackson gets involved in the link up, like comes onto for the. I think Hugh Jackson might be the receiver of the handball that Joe Richards eventually gets out when he draws the defense to him, and it's then Jackson, Hugh, and Joe that are involved for George's second goal, like a minute or so later. And then when it comes to Liddy taking a shot that's very, very close to Liddy's first goal and really unfortunate and sad for Liddy, it was very funny as well. They reacted.
How deflating.
It was almost 3 goals in 3 or 4 minutes that all had integral parts of the link up to get them to get to that goal point was Hugh Jackson and Joe Richards. And that's Joe Richards is my spotlight for the week because I think he was incredible, particularly in that first quarter, again, kind of like Hugh Jackson, kind of as we start to probably pull back our onslaught, they kind of fall away as well. It's part and parcel. But Richards was involved in a lot of things throughout the game still. But I think that first quarter, and in particular that period of play, was incredible from both of those guys, and both worthy of a spotlight. And to key in on why and how important it was, the score involvement leaders at quarter time were Hugh Jackson with 5, Joe Richards with 5, and Mitch Georgiades with 3. So when you've got those, you've got 2 guys that and to harken back to my point about the bottom 6, at some point that Joe Richards, and if you're looking at it and just didn't really have an idea of how we've been going recently, anyone, just a layman, might look and go, well, those are your bottom 6, 2 are your bottom 6. I haven't heard of those guys much there. Joe Richards has come in as part of the Dan Houston deal and a grumbly Dan Houston deal that it was. Me, after 15 beers on Thursday night, was just like, did we win the trade? But that was a thought.
So, introduced Jamison to the mix, and it changed everything up.
Yeah,
everyone and everything in Adelaide Oval copped it on Thursday.
The cracks are showing. But I think that's incredible that those 2 were, combined for 10 score involvements in the first quarter and were clearly leaders of that stat. Like, if you're going to win, and that's a first quarter that had a fair bit of, good Bergman stuff, good Butters stuff, like Butters what was it? Kingy said he's got the 9-iron out. He's doing those little sidewinder kicks that he does off like keeping the leg around. Like
I think we spoke about it at the game as well, about him just getting golf clubs out and getting the pitching wedge.
He was trying it all. Like Butters had the bag of tricks out in the night, and he was incredible on that. Like right from the off, as we said, the centre-bout setup was Bergman, Butters, Drew at the start, and I think they were all playing their part. But it was the other guys in the other guys in like the likes of Hugh and Joe that really capped off the everything, and that was partly because they have the quickness of like Hugh was showing a lot of quick handball skill and quick assessment skill. Joe Richards, I think, has shown a lot of that this year, and his quickness of mind and his ability for his body to execute what he's seeing so quickly, and then obviously the likes of Butters and stuff go without saying. Quickly on the CBAs, because it's been my my little thing like this year. I've talked about wanting consistency and like more than one guy to be like at the 70-80 mark, like as far as like just to get a little bit more consistency around it. Bergman was at 89% of CBAs. Willem Drew was at 75, and Butters was at 75 as well. So you've gotten three guys at least three quarters of the CBAs. One of them, obviously, Bergman being the key there. He was at a lot with Cripps, but then Cripps was only at 75, so Bergman stayed in there and played his role. What was I watching? There's something with some really good stuff, really good analysis of Bergman. So I think it might have been First Crack. We're talking about Bergman's ability to both to be on his guy, like if he's blanketing someone like Cripps, but also be able to quickly recognize when you're gaining possession and be able to get the two. And they kept on talking about the two steps. It was Kingy talking about the two steps that Bergman can take immediately once he realizes we're going to get possession and be out as an offensive force. And that kind of like, it was a good, because I was thinking about this, like how we've talked about it with the Dawson tag that he did, that he was actually able to get involved in the play going forward. I thought Kingy's way of metabolizing it, boiling it down to that kind of idea of it taking you two steps when you see the ball coming. I thought that was a great way to like talk about it, because that is what we saw on the night, that Bergman he was, and again, wherever Cripps was at as far as his health goes, who knows? But he turned up on the day and played, so we can only play who's in front of us. Bergman was incredible on the night. Shout out to friend of the pod, Eddie Corns. His assessment of Bergman at the mid-season break might be. I mean, I'll be interested to talk to Eddie at the end of the year as to how it's gone on since. As far as, and it was more about like just what money you give Bergman rather than his actual, I think, wasn't criticizing too much his play. But then since then, his stock's only risen, and we're seeing more consistency, and maybe that Jordan Dawson game, because I think when the Jordan Dawson game happened and that tag, it was like, is this a once-off? Like, how can he keep doing this? But now I've seen him, I think they talked about in First Crack as well, like he taking Toby Green and Brent Daniels, was number 3 rated player on the field that day. When he took Petrarca a few weeks ago, 4th rated player on the day, and was number 1 rated player on the ground against Cripps. Obviously, the outlier being the 43rd rated player against Heaney and Warner, but again, he was apparently crook. So, mulligan, as you said. But I mean, how are you feeling 4 or 5 days out? And obviously, we've had the added boost of a Kaltumi bomb that he might be signing on for the next 2 years. Hasn't happened yet, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But it was a really incredible game to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just the refreshing nature of shifting someone into a different position and see how they go in it. And funnily enough, I believe it was the Brisbane debacle last year that he got his first real taste late in that game, and now we're coming up against Brisbane, and he's kind of established himself as a very versatile, damaging midfielder. And the other thing is that we've cried out for a bit more defensive accountability from our midfield group at time over the last 18 months, and he definitely offers that in spades. So the emergence of him in conjunction with the sense of clarity in his mind that he's coming to his decision, he's happy where he is, he's comfortable at our football club, he loves the football club. Does it coincide with a recent improve in form. Who knows? But it's exciting all the same. And if yeah, again, we don't want to count any chickens before they've hatched, but you pick up who's reputable in the business and who's not, and you generally trust some people when they announce things like that, and Khartoum is probably in that basket. So if it does come to fruition, if we do see that signature signed on the dotted line, it's just another credit to the football club as a whole as well. You don't have that good of a record without doing something right on and off the field. But that's broad. Back to Bergman. Just again, like Radicalea, he's allowing his AFL attributes to come to the fore in more ways than one now. We've always known he's a good mark, that he can burst off of a half back line, which is where we've seen it. But now he's getting that flexibility to really make his mark on games.
Yeah. There was one little sequence early in the it was early in the game. Yeah, it was actually in the first quarter, and one of the first notes I actually had from my rewatch. There was a sequence coming from the back line where it went like Connor Rosie kind of had it deep almost in the opposition goal square, and he kicks it to Jason Horne-Francis, who then I think handballs onto Zerk Thatcher, or kicks to the Zerk Thatcher, who quickly handballs back to Horne-Francis, who then he kicks it to Bergman, and Bergman's sequence prior, like his positioning prior to the kick coming to him, was he was drifting like out of the square. I want to say to the wing, like to the eastern wing side. I'm trying to think which way we were going. Either way, he's going, left of screen, I guess you could say. When you're watching, he's kind of drifting out that way, but then he kind of does a dart back in, and so like the kind of Carlton is starting kind of seeing that Horne-Francis is looking towards Bergman, who's going out of the square. And kind of you see the whole kind of field just drift that way, but Bergman darts back in, makes a dart back in, and that's when Horne-Francis hits the kick. And so Bergman's changed his direction from going out to the wing to suddenly he's darting through the like diagonally the opposite direction through the square, got clear space out in front of him. He puts a kick into the forward line into Mitch Georgiades, who's then got space because it's kind of like the whole field's gone to the left, and then it's quickly the play's come back to the right. And so it was this real great sequence from defence to forward line. I think Mitch has a one-on-one, doesn't get the mark. I've got a note that gets brought to a forward 50 stoppage. It was about 2 minutes into the game. So we've gone from defence to offence. We've done this little sequence of play that's kind of like there's a plan. Like Bergman clearly was like, yeah, I'll drift this way, but then dart back in, and Horne-Francis will see me and figure it out. And brother from another mother for all that
As
stuff.
He does.
Jason Horne, Bergman. So yeah, it was just a really fun sequence of play, and I don't know if that's a coaching thing as well. That they've started to work on some things, and maybe it's the car influence or whatever you want to say. It's just good game intelligence from that sequence of play, and a lot of good players involved in it, getting it to the forward line, bringing it to a stoppage, and a good early sign as to what we were going to try to do, and certainly Bergman's power and his ability to, because the way he was bursting off a halfback at times was pretty incredible. Like. They highlighted a few of them in the post-match shows and everything, and just some of his darting run, and then maybe offset by the fact that Carlton just seemed to not have any run in anyone. They were just dragging their asses behind them.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much that makes it look even better, but yeah, Bergman's run, when he's in that kind of mood, and long may it continue, it's scary stuff to watch. His size, just his size as a player and everything like that. If he keeps building the way he's going, it's a scary prototype for the modern midfielder, because he's Patrick Cripps is seen as a pretty big midfielder, but Bergman is just I don't know what their actually height difference is, who's taller than who, but Bergman looks bigger to me. Like I don't know if it's just the way his body shape comes together, but yeah, he's not saying he's better than a two-time Brownlow medalist, but he was better on the night, and he's building. Like we still don't know what his ceiling is yet either. So that's what's scary to me. So I mean, scary in a good way for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and you want to see with flux of form to the positive, you want to see it sustained over a period of time, and I think everyone could agree that it's been sustained now. And then as an extension of that, some people relish in the fact that he's trusted with a bit more responsibility now. He's not just there to intercept mark in the defensive line and rebound off defensive half or defensive 50, he can actually connect the dots and link up, and he's being entrusted to put the score on the board as well when he sees himself around that vicinity, which he did fantastically well on Thursday night. So, yeah, like I said, some people crave leadership, crave the extra responsibility, and, it's rare that you see someone who's in contract negotiations be like a in-season addition to the leadership group. Nothing official has come out about that, but there's definitely been allusions to it, slips of the tongue in some press conferences if they want it somewhat hidden, which I don't know why I would. But yeah, so it's rare you see that. So it tells me that he wants responsibility. He wants to be a leader among other young men, and he's still a young man in his own right as well, which is even more pleasing.
Yeah, no, he's still quite part of our young crop, and he's just kind of coming in, starting to come into those prime years. But it's incredible. I really like the point of difference he adds to that again, talking about that CBA kind of attendance and just like that core group that clearly were these centre bounce guys. Because I mean, the next one, we don't have anyone. Hugh Jackson's the next most CBAs at 21%. So we really did, other than compared to previous weeks where we'd have like a group of 5 players at the 40 to 50s, but we really didn't have it. It was the core group was, and Jordan Sweet, obviously the other one is the ruckman, but Bergman, Drew, and Butters were the 3. And Butters with his ingenuity and everything, Drew just with what Drew does, but Bergman's a perfect blend of both, and he has that size, as I said, he has that Superman kind of body to be a really great point of difference between the Drew and Butters as the as those key kind of opposites. Bergman in the middle, I just love that as a mix. Yes, we're talking about a game again that went in a way that was very much decidedly our way. So the test will be repetition against different sides, and certainly a big test coming up this week. It was interesting. I think David King was making the comparison between Bergman and Hugh McCluggage. So it's interesting to see that they're going to match up this weekend, or whether they match up, but they'll be on again playing each other on opposite sides of the midfield. So it was beyond those guys. And if you have anything more to say on them, go for it, because there's plenty I could talk about them all day. A
couple of notes for the midfield, but yeah. I just wanted to. Sorry,
you go.
No, you hang up. No, don't hang up. No, you finish what you're going to say, and then I'll go.
I was just going to say they were ably assisted by. I mean, Jason Horne-Francis clearly still hampered a bit, but and they managed him towards the end of the game. But he was good. He still hasn't hit great Jason Horne-Francis form for a while, but there's reasons for that, and I'm not too worried. He's just battling some injury, but he still shows plenty. Oh yeah,
I think
it's scary when you're like he's a bit down just because of his body at the moment, and he's still like he's busting through, having some influence. Looks pretty happy still. Like he looks
picking off short, smart kicks. Yes. Just the piece de resistance.
The only thing he had a running shot at goal that again blazes wide. And I think he's got 4. They brought up our leading scorers for the year, and Horne-Francis has 14. I think he's 5th in our leading scorers as a side, 4th or 5th. I'm like, he should have 20 to 25 this year, because he's the amount and hit that.
Absolutely.
It's just, but I'm not going to get too worried about that. But Travis Boak was great, I think, and he set after the game.
Awesome!
He's quite refreshed after a few weeks off, so he was great. And then shout out again to Manny Liddy. I think the commentators gave him some love and said they found someone in him. I don't know if it was that Matt Hill or who it was on the KO call, but again, another one that would be classed in that bottom 6. Travis Boak is arguably a bottom 6 player at this point, just based on age profile and what his squad, where he makes up in the squad. Everyone that was down in that bottom 6, so to speak, had great games that you could argue for any of them to be maybe when we get to our votes in the votes, but even if not in the votes, there'd be honourable mentions. I think Travis Boak had some really nice, that little kick into Willie Rioli towards the end to finish off a great sequence of play was nice. He had a lot of nice disposals. Looked refreshed, considering he was coming off some sickness and whatever. He looked as fresh as Travis Boak's looked all year. So we were ably assisted by a lot of guys playing really well around those core guys in the midfield.
I agree. Loved Boki's game. Yeah, like you said, it was good to see him refreshed and moving pretty well, getting involved, making senior decisions with the ball in hand. I I laughed at the fact that because Drew was occupying centre bounce a lot and Hewitt was occupying centre bounce a lot, and they had their hands full in other regards, we saw a tagger v tagger a lot of the time in those stoppage battles, which was funny. Hewitt had a good game in his own
Yeah.
right, but you usually see those two doing jobs on other players from opposition sides. But so it was a little bit humorous. Drew, I don't think, let himself down either. And just the week by week watch of the ruck battle, like I thought the sweet centre bounce predominantly and Visentini forward works better and makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Sweet with the bigger body, I feel, is a bit more insurance in a centre bounce situation. And Visentini had 4 shots on goal. So with Jack Lukosius poised to come back in, these two guys just keep having their own subplot going on within our team as a whole, which I find fascinating. And it's why I'm a nuffy who's making a podcast and not working inside a football club at a professional level, because look, you dare say one of them will probably come out if a Jack Lukosius comes in, and I would say that either of them is probably a little bit unlucky, because I thought Sweet early showed dominance over De Koning, and De Koning was any plaudits for hard work he received in the second half, whatever, it was probably window dressing. Like when the game was there to be won, I thought Sweet impacted himself from a stoppage point of view, but then ably helped by Dante Visentini, who's just emerging as one of the best young ruckmen in the competition.
Yeah. Visentini's work around the ground, really, really nice. And yeah, as you said, the way he gets forward, the way he competes for a mark, and the way he takes marks pretty well. Considering, again, like the reason that we're playing 2 rucks is probably because we lost patience with Ollie Lord's inability to compete for, forward 50 shots and goal, because Ollie Lord wasn't even presenting himself the chances towards the end there, whereas Visentini, as you said, had 4 shots. Unfortunately, kicks 1 goal 3, but he does kick, and he misses a couple of gettable ones, so that's something to work on. But probably the most important thing for us and what we're talking about at the moment is the fact he put himself in position to get those shots and ably, flying the flag, getting, there was obviously that little bit of fracas at the end of the first half after he'd really just put a block on side. It wasn't a bump, and a rare moment in which the tribunal or match review officer showed some common sense, because Visentini not even having to answer a charge is the right outcome of that. That's kind of the common sense way that those things should be adjudicated. But great to see him kind of very funny that none of the Carlton players remonstrated until like afterwards when they saw Sard down, and then they saw a replay. It's like no one saw what happened. And then even the replay is not that bad, but I guess they were like, we have to do something because we've done nothing else for half of football. And
no, that's exactly right. That's what makes it a little bit more embarrassing for mine.
Yeah,
is like,
yeah,
where's your passion on the field in game time?
I wish the TV had shown it, and we'll get to the forward line in a moment. I just wanted to...
Yeah, right I know what you're going to say.
Because I swear Jace Burgoyne was bouncing around pointing at the scoreboard, because I said that on the night, but I didn't see any vision but they kind of didn't show as they were going.
No, I think he was pointing to the players' race.
Oh, okay.
Just basically telling them to, take a hike. But
either way,
there was no vision from what I saw. Yeah, we did. We spoke about it at halftime. Yeah, just a little churlish, jumping up and down, pointing to the players' race, just, on your bike. Once we finally separated as groups.
Yeah, go back and get a refreshment. Not that you need it because you've got nothing to do. You had nothing to do in the first half.
You can't be gassed.
Yeah, great stuff from Butters once he got involved in that, and just fucking smiling and yelling what, I'm not a great lip reader, but there was a fair few like fuck yous or whatever to Chincotta. Which was fantastic. Butters involved in those situations is so great because he's always just smiling and there's guys grabbing at him. His jumper's getting ripped in 3 different directions. Butters is like turning around, seeing another Carlton player yelling at him, just like yelling at one, then turning back and yelling back at Chick Potter, and there's another one there, and plenty of Port players getting in there trying to help, but Butters is kind of like, yeah, I'm good. Like, I've got these guys. Just great Butters stuff. We have to, just talking about that reminded me, like the little 4D chess that Butters played and the pretending to run off stuff is really, really good as well. Like, just shows how dialed in we were on the day.
Whoa, and it shows that he is actually putting work in to try and think of strategies to do with the tag if it comes this way, which I would imagine that, Connor is doing. JHF would probably need to be learning some of these lessons too, because on any given day, they can all cop a bit of attention themselves. So, yeah. That's it. He paid credit to Dacos where he saw him doing it in a match, and Zach Butters has chosen to implement it on the night to his benefit. Clearly,
yeah, it was very, very good by him. There's also a few moments just in the game you could see Butters, like when Chinkotter's on him, really just the way to shake a tag. I think is just to be just straight up better. Then that is kind of like it's very baseline, but there was a few times where he kind of used the run of maybe like Bergman. I think there was one moment where Bergman kind of got in the way and Butters recognized that Bergman was kind of de facto a shepherd there and just went around Bergman and he used his speed and his pace and his ability to juke just to outwork Chincotta. And I think that's like, again, we talked about it like 2 months ago maybe that Butters was some commentator saying is Butters taggable anymore, and it's like Chincotta tried and it was on him at times, but between Butters doing some little tricks in the with the interchange gates as well as just simply outworking him and just being in scintillating form and being able to outrun him, outwork him. There was a couple he just shaked and baked him, and it was hard. You could tell Butters was exerting every possible sinew of his body to get away from him, but he did. He'd get away from him and get a kick inside 52 advantage just through sheer hard work. And I think that's between those kind of things. And yeah, again, he'd use the positioning of his teammates as well. And Bergman, you could kind of realize what was going on and just help shimmy his body in the way and was able to just get that separation. But it's kind of like, pick and rolls and stuff like that in the NBA. Just something you've got like good players that get tagged in whatever sport it is, but it's something like the great players figure out a way to get away from him. And he did that on the night to a significant aplomb, which was great to see. And as I said, he had a few decent kicks inside 50, and he missed a few, like some of those like sidewinder chips and 9-irons, like didn't quite come off. But I love that he tries them. So it's great.
Yeah, because they do generally pay off.
Yeah, exactly.
Get a shoot your shot.
The fact that he's got that in his very, very, very overflowing bag of tricks is a great thing, and he keeps showing us more and more as time goes on. The forwards. I mean, you've got to start there's a couple actually. There's a few to talk about, but I mean, you can't start anywhere else. But Mitch Georgiades early on, I said in the Thursday show, in the Patreon show that the Patreon show that ended up getting released on on the main channel. Which, by the way, for those out there wondering why that happened, Patreon is being silly and anyway, I won't get into that. But Patreon's looking for two-factor authentication, and I realized it's attached to my number in America, so I'm figuring out with Patreon customer service, which is very, very slow, how to get back in there. So that will be back up and running soon. But I did mention in the squad show that that there was a watch on Wiedering and our ability to maybe take advantage of that ankle, and it was very obvious from the pre-game then, and there was Channel 7 or whoever was showed Wiedering having some extensive chats with the docs looking at his ankle. It was like, okay, we're on here. He's not good. He's going to play, but he's not good. And very, very quickly, with advantage, Georgiades just took advantage with his athleticism, his ability as a lead-up forward to be able to change angles and all that stuff. And Wiedering didn't last long on him, to be honest, because, Georgiades had a great game and kicked reasonably accurately, 7 shots on goal, 5 goals too. I don't think he kicked any out in the full tonight, Thursday. So, I think he had a reasonably accurate night compared to we talk about the Melbourne game as good as it was that he did miss. He could have had 8 or 9. But this one was a very much he took advantage of. I think there's only one that he could have had 6-1, but 5-2 is a pretty good result. I'm very, very happy with that. It's a game-winning effort from him, ably assisted by a few others. But starting with Mitch, he got himself to 3rd in the Coleman on the night before I think slipping down to 4th by the end of the weekend. But he's up in the top 5 of the Coleman, which. Not often that we're able to say that about a forward in recent years.
No, and nor did we probably expect that to be the case heading into this season, particularly with what shaped up to be our forward setup being, several hybrid forwards, if not a tall and a couple of hybrids. But yeah, I guess after Thursday, just wanted to reflect on how lucky we are. I suppose, with how good of a season he's having and generating the amount of shots that he is generating, we've often lamented the inaccuracy, but just wanted to appreciate him and the season that he is having. Like, this is an all-time season for Mitch Georgiadis, and clearly an imposing figure on the competition as a whole, while carrying a forward line at the moment and being a lone target in some regards, but a lot of the time. And that's also contributed to by his hard work. He's just outworking defenders bigger than him and a bit too strong for defenders a similar size to him. So wrapped for him that he got the 5 goals too, and we didn't have to talk about inaccuracy because it did just give us an opportunity to reflect on his whole year and appreciate another young, talented commodity that loves playing for our football club and performs at a high level the majority of the time.
And you can see him growing this year, and it's really interesting listening to the commentary saying this is like one of the best, so they were talking about some of the things he does in particular and how he leads and his athleticism and what he can do, whether it be his ability to leap for a mark or just simply lead into space, the fact he's got so much in his kit bag. There was a lot of chat from the commentators like this is maybe genuinely one of the best, if not the best forwards in certain aspects of what he does, and he's growing into that conversation. And I mean, clearly when you have a conversation that is talking about a guy that's 4th in the Coleman alongside the likes of Jeremy Cameron, Jesse Hogan, Ben King, funny one that after what Jake Rivot was saying last week, but
what a man,
Jamie Elliott's, Jack Gunston, Riley Thilthorpe. There's the names that are in front of him and behind him are all people that are either young up and comers or seasoned campaigners that already have had those plaudits for years. Jesse Hogan being a Coleman winner himself. Jeremy Cameron hasn't actually won one, has he? No, he wouldn't have, because it's been a few years of Carlton forwards and then Hogan last year as well.
Yeah.
So, but you just see from where he was at the start of this year, and then he has some games where it be St Kilda one or a few of those other ones in the first 5-6 weeks where it's like he's playing well, but he's still, but then he's starting to kick bags. The 4s and 5s and the 7s, obviously, they're starting to become more regular, and he's just starting to generate even more shots, and he's taking on good defenders and beating them, or he gave Sam Taylor, maybe he wins that one, but then that was just a turgid game with not a high scoring anyway. Georgiades worked him very, very hard, and ultimately I think helped grind out the win that we had with opening up we were able to find a way to score despite Georgiades and Taylor having that battle. And then, his battle against Stephen May was an absolute win. Wiedering's injured, but they take him off him, and Silvani gets thrown on him, or whoever it is, and he breaks Silvani's ankles in a great sequence towards the end of the second quarter. Lots of different ones. It's just it doesn't matter who's thrown on him. If the ball's coming in, and yes, Georgiades highlighted that in his post-game interview as well. He said the ball was coming in really well. That helps me. But if we can get that synergy going in the middle of the ground to help him out, it's a scary proposition going forward, and a very, very fun one for Port Adelaide fans to consider, considering we are still, limited up forward as far as he is the focal point, and he's still getting these opportunities and taking them. That's what's scary, is what happens when you do get a fit 7 kilos added muscle Todd Marshall there, or Jack Lucas playing well. When you actually, and there's all the talks about the 2-3 tools systems and and how it works or how it doesn't at the moment, whether it be the Adelaide Crows or other teams that are trying their different things, the Hawthorn and everyone. But, we'll have to figure it out when we do get them fit. But it is scary thinking he is the only tool leading forward that the opposition has to worry about, and he's still tearing them up more often than not at the moment.
Yeah, I totally agree. And grateful. But all the while, because they can't settle a defender on him, and our ball movement is that much better than Carlton's and their hapless defence, it allows the support act to also get involved. Like you mentioned Joe Richards already, and funnily enough, he didn't actually kick a goal on the night, although he could have had at least a couple, if not three. But DBJ just going under the radar broadly, and one of our statistically best forward 50 operators when you consider retention kicking inside 50 and then his accuracy at goal going off of Sir Swamp Thing's financial year review of goal accuracy. DBJ's in the top, what is it, 8 to 10 players
I was actually
this financial year or last financial year?
Yeah, he's in the top. He's 7th. No, 6th. Yeah, so Jesse Hogan, Darcy Fogarty, Nick Larkey, Luke Parker, Nick Martin, and Darcy Byrne-Jones. 73% accuracy for Darcy this year. This is the qualifier being 25 plus scoring shots as a decent, sample size, is what Jamie was alluding to with Sir Swamp Thing's stat. So, great by you to highlight, because I was at a busy day at work, and when you tagged me, that was like a little dopamine hit in the middle of like the last couple of hours of my work day that were really, really grinding at that point. I was like, oh, that's fun.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, well, and because we've been commenting to ourselves a little bit lately about his impact in obviously smaller doses than some, but playing as a forward flanker or a forward pocket, your opportunities are going to be few and far between. But it just goes to show he's doing the hard work. He's bringing other players into the game, which he's done now consistently for 18 months, if not 2 years to this point. And he's even getting on the scoreboard and kicking accurately. Like, what more can you ask for? Did you say you brought up our top goal scorers for the season coming into this?
I talked about it before. What was it? I talked about it with Jason HORNE-FRANCIS being
because JHL. Yeah.
Wouldn't
surprise me just by sheer regularity that Darcy Byrne-Jones chips in if he was in and around that top pack.
Yeah, it's George obviously first, Willie Rioli second, and I think it could be Darcy. It's Darcy and Sam Powell-Pepper in there, and then HORNE-FRANCIS. I think Darcy could be Sam Powell-Pepper and DBJ that are very, very close to each other.
Yeah.
Willie's not too far clear second, but a clear second. I think Willie's got 19 or 20, and then Darcy and Powell-Pepper are 14, 15 each maybe, and 15, 16, because I reckon HORNE-FRANCIS says 14 for some reason, just from based on what I saw. But I don't know if that was during.
Yeah.
I don't know if that.
But I mean, Willie
the game or not.
Sorry,
because I
can't remember seeing it myself.
Yeah. I mean, Willie had a great game again.
Just disposal, like impact versus disposal.
Yeah.
I mean, typified by that less than 2 second reaction time goal that he had off the hands of his teammate. Can't remember who it was. Whether it was George, perhaps.
It was George. It was George twice. Two of his 3 goals. Like, one of them's obviously the set shot.
It was, yeah.
But
I've got it fucking written here, but yeah.
Yeah. 2 of his first 2 goals come from roving off and just watching the ball drop of George taking 2 guys to an aerial contest. That one that he kind of grabs on his shoulder and just fucking slings it onto his boot, more or less. It's actually very, very, a lot of finesse involved. But then the other one where it's again George taking the contest and it just comes out and Willie's just ready for the drop and just runs into more or less an open goal. He's getting tackled as he goes down. Shout out
and it was cheek. It was cheek level, like 1,000. Just it didn't show the ball this time, but deliberately waited to kick, just to kick it at the last minute with a cheeky grin on his face.
Yeah, he did what I thought. And a moment to key in on Willie. He seemed like obviously he's had his trials and tribulations for different things this year. many of them unearned. One of them a situation he'd take back, I'm sure, but a lot of the other stuff obviously unearned as far as the abuse that he cops. He seemed like, just watching him after the game, lots of very smiley, happy, shaking hands with, like, having chats with Crips, like opposition players in the rooms, really, really happy looking. After he kicks that goal that you're talking about, where he gets tackled, like as he waits to the last second, I think it's Jordan Boyd that tackles him, and they're kind of laying on the ground afterwards as the players are coming up to hurt, like, and he kind of just reaches over and ruffles Jordan Boyd's hair. Kind of like, it doesn't, like, you could see it as a cheeky thing, but I think it was just like, fair play, mate. And he actually does, when he gets up, as players are coming to congratulate him for kicking the goal, he actually does extend his hand down and help Boyd up. It's kind of like a very, so it's very opposite to the kind of animosity we saw in the Hawthorn game earlier in the year, in a very, objectively similar situation, but no showing of the ball, obviously. But yeah, I thought just a lot of Willie body language stuff. He looks to be really, really enjoying his footy, which he always has. I think footy's obviously often been a place that's where he does just lock in. And but yeah, we've seen it a lot. Like, between his taking too much time out with the fan stuff or whatever, like over the last few weeks. And but I was kind of watching him after the game and thought, geez, he looks like he's enjoying his footy. Which after a few some turbulent weeks in the middle of the year where he had some people going, oh, we're going to see him play football again. I'm like, yeah, I'm glad he's out there enjoying his footy again, and clearly both with the opposition and as well as obviously his own teammates that he gets along with well, having a good time out there. But yeah, I mean, as you said, his disposals versus his impact again, and that's what we've said all the time about Willie, is he doesn't need much. He doesn't need much good feeding of the ball to make an impact. If he gets a few good quality looks, he's going to make an impact. His worst games are often when we're
he had 6 disposals.
Yeah.
Like 6 disposals, 3 goals. You take that. That's every day of the week.
Yeah. I mean, it's an incredible impact, because often you see him, he does often get up to 10 or 11 disposals sometimes. But yeah, if he's, getting restricted to 6 disposals, but they're ones that he's just, feeding. And it was great footy intelligence just to read. And that's good forward line synergy too. What's Stu's thing? Programmatic specificity. I've completely butchered that, but shout out Stu. There's some real programmatic specificity about Willie Rioli's game and how he's reading the ball off of, I loved his reading of the ball off of the Mitch Georgiades. That's good, a word that I can say better, synergy with what they're doing down forward and how they've kind of constructed their forward line on the run this year without, with the injuries happening. Mitch growing into the year, Willie's working out what's going on and just watching the way the ball's coming off those contests. It's just perfect stuff. And then Powell-Pepper and co were having okay games too. Didn't have Powell-Pepper didn't have the scoreboard impact he would have liked to. Powell-Pepper's always probably happier when he's kicking 2 or 3, but they're all there and thereabouts. Powell-Pepper's certainly involved in the contest and the kind of the energy in the forward line.
He's just a bulldozer. He had a bulldozery kind of night. Just wanted to split packs, but as a result, he kept losing his feet, which doesn't help you stay involved in scoring chains or whatever. But I mean, I still get enjoyment out of seeing SPP in a bulldozery kind of mood. It warms my cockles, but yeah, definitely he would like a bit more scoreboard impact, like you said.
There was a really great, it was David King in the commentary. It was just like when I think who was having a crack? I think it was Powell-Pepper and fucking Jamie's just gesturing on the camera there. I'm trying to think what he said. General rule of thumb: stay away from the crazy ones, or something like that.
Yeah, because he's a mad cunt, isn't he?
Oh, you tell me to hit the sting. I said off it. Do it again.
PP looks like a mad cunt. Look, he can't.
I said to Jamie off air, I've had a long day at work and I'll be very, very tired. I was just like, Jamie's doing like the signaling on the camera. I'm like, what is he doing? And I'm like, and it's pretty obvious that I should hit the sting because I'm talking about Powell-Pepper. I'm an idiot. But yeah, and again, it was Kingy talking about him as well. He at least didn't say mad cunt during a telecast.
Yeah, because Patrick Cripps basically had him in a chokehold.
Yeah. And
SPP just had the blankest look I could ever imagine someone who's basically being wrapped around the throat. Just just oblivious to any possible harm, which there wasn't any, but yeah, he just looked unperturbed by it.
Yeah, he was just like, oh, you are not like. It was just a look of like, you are none of my business, Crips. Like you've won a brown. Like you don't belong. It's like a real like, I was born in the darkness stuff from like
Darkness, yeah.
SPT, like you don't belong here, Crips. Like
100%.
stay out of my lane. But yeah, great stuff. From you touched on. I mean, Joe Richards. I think it was like a lot of his stuff that I was really impressed with was the mid to forward link up stuff. But yeah, he could have had a bag if he wanted to. But yeah, it was even just it was like really just fleshed out by the fact we had the forward line, the press of the whole ground was working. That we had guys like Kane Farrell come up. Bergman kicks a couple as like doing his offensive work. As Kingy talked about, the two steps that were getting him away to be able to get up forward to get a couple of shots on goal. That's where a forward line really hums, is when you get our two leading forwards of the season are Willie Rioli and Mitch Georgiades. They kick 8, so that gets us halfway to our 16. But then you have Bergman pop up with a couple. He becomes the goal-scoring midfielder that whether, Butters has only kicked 1 goal for the year, HORNE-FRANCIS is having an indifferent year, so Bergman becomes that guy for the game. Boak pops up with 1, Farrell, Lockie Jones with a roost. It's like you get half of your goal scoring in a decent goal scoring day from your main forwards, but then it's just like fleshed out by the others, and that all comes from just good pressure up forward. And as we keep saying, that everything both back and front of our field comes from how well our midfield is operating. We had probably one of the better midfield days, I think, for the year. On Thursday night, with just how we finally set up and got some consistency in there and found a recipe that worked for the day quite quickly and didn't deviate from it. We stuck with it and just ground them into the dirt with a scintillating display from the midfield that ultimately helped out our forward line.
Excuse me, absolutely, yeah. Anytime your team is kicking 16 goals, you're having a good game. And if you're losing with 16 goals on the board, it's it's generally a ripper of a game. You take 30 shots on goal and converting 16. So yeah, ball movement helps it. This will all come to the test once again this weekend. But it's nice just for everyone to kind of get their lick of the ice cream and put some hard work to the task on the night. Being so far ago, it's still nice. You take the wins in a season, but I'm happy the forwards can give us that dopamine release whenever it comes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Before we get to the segment, so we haven't talked about, actually been one of the, we haven't talked about too many of the team stats yet, and I just wanted to touch on a couple as far as like how it kind of impacted how we played. We obviously have talked about turnovers ad nauseum this year. We won the turnover battle by Carlton being +8 in our turnovers this week with 58-50. So that was like a key part of it. We just, it wasn't a high turnover game from either team, actually. Being below 60 is generally not too bad. We've had games in the 70s this year quite handily. So we just were even better. And what was a pretty, it was a cold night, but a reasonable as far as like conditions for being able to play football in,
perfect conditions.
Yeah. Some really shocking stats as far as just show just how easy we had it, though. It was like stuff like 104 marks to 59, which 16 of those being inside 50 for us to their 11. So they actually, compared, they actually hit their season average as far as marks inside 50 goes. They were just well below it by almost 40 for their marks general around the ground. We still lose contested ball by minus 11. The free kick count was -7 or +7 in Carlton's favour as well. Few contentious ones on the night, but nothing too crazy or out of the box. Disposal efficiency 75.5% to their 70, which is really just where the game was won. We've talked about it a lot. When you have a season average going into a game, you just want to kind of be around that or improve it. Or if a team is fundamentally better than you in one area, it's all about just kind of containing that part of it and seeing if you can work the other areas. In disposal efficiency, we're averaging 2% better on the season, but we were 5% better, 5.5% better on the day. So we've extrapolated out on that, as well as obviously the contested ball stuff. their contested average for the year is 140. We kept them to 117. Our contested average for the year is 122. We had 106. So we were minus 16 on our year, but they were minus 23. So we didn't beat them in that area, but we brought it in from what, we're talking about a minus 18 difference if we're going into the game and using averages. We're only minus 11, and then we did a lot of other things right, and as far as turnover goes. So there's lots of little just levers that we were able to pull within the game, or levers of the statistical levers that we could pull and just win those battles, or at least just mitigate them to win the day, which was really, really impressive. I'm not sure if there's any in particular that you noted, but those were just a few, considering some of the areas. Clearances we lose marginally, but I think we were winning that earlier in the game, end up losing 9-14, but I think they get a few more of those in the second half. So, yeah. And De Koning did get some good, decent hit outs when he got them. It's just we ultimately just battled better and got more hit outs and then brought it to stoppage, or were able to win it on the second stoppage. Like sometimes we'd get out the back, but then we'd get a tackle in and then we'd get the clearance eventually and stuff like that. So there was it's an interesting game in that aspect. It was our pressure and our ability to and our hunt for the ball that made the win happen anyway. But a few of those stats were just really, really pleasing to me, that even if we didn't win them, we just constrained them, and that's all I asked for in some of those areas that we're not great at this year, is just constraining the ball. And 48% possession versus 36, real Liverpool versus Brighton areas, or maybe not Brighton, they've been pretty decent these days, but areas where you get a real possession, those games where you get a real possession dominance. You don't get those often in AFL, but to get a 12% possession win after an entire game of AFL footy is pretty significant as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kept it off of them. Didn't even give them a chance to get themselves back into the game. But yeah, the marks summed it up. Like you said, I agree with that. Probably mostly their lack of pressure just allowed us time and space and flow on to disposal efficiency and scoring efficiency. So yeah, I think we're looking in the same directions there.
Yeah. One more to bring up before we get to segments that I just remembered. It was about 5 minutes into the third quarter when Bergman kicked his goal. I think, I'm trying to remember which goal it was, but it's just my note I've got. But it was 4 or 5 minutes into the third quarter. They mentioned it at the centre bounce after that goal. And so we've kicked 2 goals, really kicked on with the advantage at that time. I think the commentators mentioned 2 disposals for Carlton in the quarter before the Bergman goal. So we've basically kicked 2 goals, had a bunch of sequences of play, and they've only handled the ball two times. That just sums up what we were just talking about. They just couldn't get their hands on it. There's 4 minutes of a quarter that they barely got their hands on the ball, and were able to kick a couple of goals. So I think that just sums up just how well we possessed the ball on the day and controlled the game, and ultimately, to bookend what I said at the start, why I was so comfortable even after the first quarter. And there's other games this year when we've been up by 30 points, I haven't been comfortable. You could just see it. The eye test was there that Carlton were none of our business on the night, and we were always going to win that game. So, yeah, it gets a bit, gets back to 50 points, and maybe the scoreline was ultimately flattering to Carlton in the end. But I don't care. We won by 50 points in a game that I was a touch nervous going into. So that's all I care about.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Agree with everything you said. There was one last point that I wanted to bring up, and that was that I just hate seeing Brad Ebert in Carlton gear. Just a footnote. The Nuffy in me says that this is all hard work and education for him to ultimately come back to the best club in the land, that is Port Adelaide Football Club. The Nuffy in me always has that presumption with anyone related to Port Adelaide. So just a small note. Hate it. The quicker, we see an Ebert back in Port Adelaide gear, the better, I say.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. It was, very funny just seeing him standing on the sidelines, often looking very perplexed. It was often him and Boss looking in the same direction, just like, what is going on? He looks very studious, standing there with the cap and glasses on, though. Like, he looks very, just like a smart fella. I agree, though. Would love to see him back at Port sooner rather than later. All right, let's get into these segments. And, of course, always starting with the Wilson Gray.
Down, Gray doing brilliantly, getting through to Monfries. That's Grady's best.
Wilson Kicks hard and kicks truly.
Alrighty, Jamie, you get to go first this week. Just before you get into it, though, I'll mention last week's winner was Big Sav's big mark, a little intercept mark number on the wing against Sydney, a game that was a little bit less Wilson Gray nomination points than I think that we've got this week, but Big Save nonetheless wins the nomination for this the last week. Jamie, what have you got? I'm really, really intrigued to see where you go because I'm struggling to narrow mine down, so you might help me, I think.
Yeah, we're absolutely spoiled for choice. One of the longer short lists of the season, which, yeah, just adds to the warming of the cockles. But I've gone for the continued Asava love, and it's in the third quarter, about 14 minutes on the clock. He spoils Kerno and then does the 5 Ds of dodgeball to gather the ball and then kicks a nice chiseler to Travis Boak, who then continues on the chain of possession. But yeah, it was just
Williams to Koning now, and with a surge it inside 50 immediately. Kerno! Hands there, well done, Rattigaleri, didn't give up on it. And now he's going to rip it away here to himself. The handball give and receive. Seen that before, Kano? Boak.
some pure defensive work to begin with, and then yeah, a little bit of chaos, and then the calming of the ocean a little bit just to nail the disposal as well on Asava's behalf, which goes along with the note that you made, I think it was last week, that his possession is actually getting better as well with this confidence and form boost that he's currently in. He's actually biting off a little bit more, and it's being executed a lot better than it did 12 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I just scrolled down as you were talking about that just to see. I was like, I haven't actually looked at this week, but yeah, almost 85% disposal efficiency again this week, which is the best out of the 3 tools. So, yeah, and he's been in and around those numbers for a few weeks now. So, yeah, sneaky, like, yeah, as I said last week, Salva's learned how to putt. Yeah, love seeing he's getting nominations quite regularly in the Wilson Gray lately. So I'm loving that.
We love our defensive union as well.
Yeah.
This isn't a defender's award; it's just acts of football. But yeah, the defensive union often gets a bit of love.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I will get a little bit of forward union love in here, though. It is a former defender, an All-Australian defender, and that is Darcy Byrne-Jones. He had a couple of moments in this game actually like this, but I'm going to nominate the first one. So it's about halfway through the first quarter, he lays a bump on Blake Acres in kind of the forward pocket that just, I think, knocks Blake Acres into next week.
Vicentini, little tap down, almost for Willenbrew, not quite Hewitt. Fed it inside, Acres lost it, Richards kicks! Across the face, sneaks in for minus score.
Finlay is the rocket scientist too, by the way. He's not here tonight.
Outside 5.
Rockets. Just loading them up.
No concussions or anything like that. I'm not talking about that. But it was just that fair, a good bump that he like. Blake Acres like comes off his feet almost. Ball spills out, and I think we actually kick a goal after. I can't remember if that was one of George's goals from the one from maybe the pocket or not. I'm not sure, but it does knock the possession away from Carlton and ultimately ends up in a goal. But yeah, DBJ just laying an absolute hammer of a bump on Blake Acres is my nomination.
I remember that.
Yeah. He actually lays one. I look through my notes. He actually had a second bump like that. It was on Wiedering in the second quarter, a very similar one as well. I'm nominating the Acres one because I was like, that was a really good one. But he fucking knocks Wiedering into next week as well in the second quarter. And 2 just very, very good fair bumps, but just DBJ.
Yeah, has you licking your lips.
Yeah,
because the bump's not dead. He likes to bite, take on a bump or execute. And yeah, more often than not, he does get it right, and it's nice to see. I didn't even have those listed on mine, but that's a great shout from you. I remember, I think it was one at the southern end, which might be the Wiedering one that you mentioned, and just no competition, just sweeps them out the way.
Yeah,
it was nice.
It's nice considering he did get suspended for that one that kind of went slightly awry against St Kilda earlier this year, and he's not changing his ways. 'Cause there's the St Kilda one was like just it went slightly wrong and it wasn't an egregious act like, talking about the Houston one against Rankin last year or anything like that. It was just a bump that's gone slightly wrong under the current auspices that the game operates under. So it's like, yeah, he's continuing to play the way he does, and he had a sneaky great game between coming up with the goals that he kicked and his execution coming inside 50, as well as just being a good pressure forward in those situations and getting possession back with good pressure acts like that. So yeah, I'm very, very glad to get as you said, defenders union versus the forward union this week, but though a former member, someone who's card carrying member of the defenders union only a few years ago. But,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so many honourable mentions left on the table as well.
Yeah. Give me a couple if you got them.
Yeah. Got to shout out Bergman's spinning handball in the last quarter to get it to Sweet, who then gets it to Jones, who I believe then gets it to Boak for Rioli's last goal, and I think our last goal for the game. But yeah, Bergman, after an already fast-moving chain of possession, doing the spinning handball. Rosie had a similar moment to the one that I nominated, doing some defensive work and then zigging and zagging out of half-back as well, just typical. I think you actually brought it up earlier in the when we were talking about the defenders line, but
yeah,
what's a moment or two that you had on your list?
There was one. It's another Asava one actually. He did he had a moment in the third quarter. I can't remember what exactly was going on, but he kind of like he's on the close to the boundary, and he just like stiff arms one guy, and another one comes up, and he just stiff arms him again, and then gets taken over the line. But it's just like he kind of had this like "fuck off, you little people" like kind of attitude about him. It was like,
you're a pest. Yeah, out of my sight.
Be gone with you.
And it was like, you walked over the boundary line, but it was just like, it was too funny to care from the umpire's point of view. Just pushing this little pipsqueak out the way.
Yeah, it really was that. Just pipsqueak. Like you're just none of my business kind of stuff. Burgoyne also took a great mark midway through the second quarter. Kind of like I think it was a Silvani kick forward and somewhere on the wing, and Burgoyne kind of just rises into a pack of players and just takes the ball at its kind of at the the high point to be able to take it, which is kind of cool. After just a few weeks ago, we really lauded him for that mark that he took in the square to kick that goal at the quarter time siren in the Melbourne game. Just showing a little bit of marking ability of late. Not that I've ever thought he was bad in that way, but he's just like getting a little bit more involved in that kind of some of those contested situations, being able to go tall. So I really love that from him. But yeah, the list was long. There's lots of like little moments in my rewatch notes that have got WG question mark next to them, and I can't even. Some of them I didn't even go back to because I was just like, I've got them now, so I can't even remember what they were. But I just had them noted just to go back to in case I needed to find something. So no, there was plenty. All right, let's get into the goal of the week.
Monfrez has kicked a goal. Unbelievable! Haven't seen anything like that. It's gone at right angle.
Flashpoint, Stevie Mobler, what a time! Oh! He is floating on air now!
We always enjoy listening to that. Just reminds me of being showered in beers at that showdown, which was just fantastic. Goal of the week. Before I get into our nominations for this week, our winner from last week was JHF's crumbing goal. Actually won fairly comfortably, which I was a little bit surprised by. I thought the SPB bomb was going to be my nomination if I went first last week, but the people love
JHF. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah,
the people have spoken.
Yeah, the people love Jason HORNE-FRANCIS,
which we love.
Yeah, we love democracy.
We do.
JHF's crumbs cleaning last week wins the nomination. So for this week, I'm finding it really tough to pick which one I want to go with first. But I'm going to go with one we talked about earlier because it's just the first one that came to mind. But I'll wait to see where you go before I give a very, very honourable mention maybe. But I'm going to nominate Willie's goal, his second. No, I think it was his first one. Whichever one that he does where he it is one of the ones that comes off the Mitch Georgiades contest work. Willie grabs it, and they kind of talk about in the commentary how he kind of grabs it at his shoulder and just turns on the ball.
Like behind himself almost.
Yeah, exactly. He's still kind of somewhat half turned away from goal when he kicks it. That's how quick he gets it on the foot. but snaps it through. Does get a quick score review, but obviously was nothing to worry about there. It was a goal for Willie. So yeah, Willie's snapping effort, crumbing off of some of the great work of Georgiades, just bringing guys to contest, and Willie.
Brilliant things, the Berglines and the Port Adelaide jumpers. Big fly in the end. Georgiades, Rioli so quiet in the first. It's going in the third.
Have a look at this from Willie Rioli. This is quick draw McGraw.
That's instinct.
Bang! Just so fast onto the boot. You could see the space disappearing with Chera closing.
Willie feeding off the crumbs. He was really feeding on the night, and I loved that goal. That was my nomination.
Num 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 num. Obviously a great nomination. Fantastic nomination, and again, there's going to be fantastic nominations left on the cutting room floor. And it breaks my heart because Mitch breaking ankles is obviously a highlight of the night. But I think I'm going to go with Bergman's long bomb late in the third quarter because it's been highlighted, I believe, in some post-match analysis. But
it's enough to make your blood boil if you're a forward. Charlie Curnow, 2v1.
Hasn't touched the footy this term yet, Charlie Curnow. As Quincy said, it's been a tricky night for forwards for the Blues. Bergman unloads a long ball. Might have another one in quick time. 2 goals for Bergman.
So this is the Carlton mids getting sucked in. Bergman's going to kick the goal. Butters is going to set the goal up. So just a one-on-one there. Bergman was terrific physically. The fumble, the cough up, they all get sucked in. Butters holds his width. He trusts his own midfield to go and win it. And then Bergman follows up with an absolute bomb from outside 50. Great response.
he puts on the defensive action in the centre situation, and then through chain of possession and him taking the 2 steps, like you mentioned, away from contest and into space, just allows himself to get the receiving handball and goes bang from 55 metres out and nails it. It was just a fantastic piece of play by an emerging leader in our club. Fantastic moment.
Yeah. I love that he lays the tackle originally to get the ball to spill out, and then he gets up and gets the receiver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%.
It's incredible stuff from him, and kind of highlights just how good he was in the night. It's a really kind of quintessential. You can just snapshot that 10 seconds from the centre bounce to when the ball's got maybe 15 seconds going through the big sticks, and say, this is why we loved Bergman's night. I think anyone that didn't watch the game, you just showed him that, and they go, okay, if he was doing that kind of shit all night, then yes, we completely understand. That was a fantastic one. That was my other option too. I think you're right. The Georgiades one is a crazy one to leave off, maybe for some, but Willie's work, I think that's just hand to foot speed is just something I love so much. Small forward craft, and the fact
that was the deliberation in my head as well. Is that forward nous, Rioli's quick snap is just the magic that a small forward can possess, such as Willie Rioli. And yeah, I am on the same wavelengths with your reasoning as well.
Yeah. The Georgiades one is a great honourable mention, though, because I think that is such an incredible moment. I think it's almost like, I think Georgiades, as soon as that ball came to him there, it just went, oh, I'm going to fucking feast. And he just knew that he had those guys on a plate. Just I'll just run around, dance around this, dance around that. The hardest part of that for Georgiades was probably actually the finish, which isn't difficult for him, but that was probably the getting around those defenders with the amount of space he has and what kind of form he's in. Jack Silvani wasn't going to fucking do shit. I'm sorry, no disrespect to the Sauce family, but he wasn't going to, with Georgiades in space.
He wasn't going to do shit.
Exactly. I can't remember. I think it was Billy Wilson, which was a first gamer. That was the other one that came in, was the second one that tried to stop him. It's just welcome to the AFL, son. Here you go. This is Mitch Georgiades, and he's going to entertain you. There was nothing. There was a relative. It's not easy, but there was a relative ease to that where I'm like, okay, that would be, if we didn't have those 2 that we've nominated, maybe that gets up there. But I think it's worth noting the work that Bergman does to kick the one that you've nominated, and then just the sheer nous and the pressure that Willie is under pressure there. The only option he has is to use his skills that he's been given and do what he did with it. And that's why we love Willie, is because he just does that stuff so often. He's very, very good. He has an eye for goal. It's not even an eye for goal. He doesn't even see the goals. He just knows where they are.
Yeah, and the on the topic of Rioli, in consideration, no, in conjunction, sorry, with his other goal, the cheekier one,
Yeah.
I cracked up laughing because Matt Hill was dabbling in a bit of Dwayneism.
Oh,
And
was it?
I had to like similar to you last week where you had to pause it just to laugh. I had to pause it because when Rioli ran through the second one, Matt Hill exclaims, "Willie's in again," in a really cheeky way. He's like, "Willie's in again." A little double entendre work from Matt Hill, and I'm like, yeah, really taking some lessons from a commentator hero of his in Dwayne, surely, because the slight cheeky undertone to the comment was definitely intentional. And yeah, loved it. Love Matt Hill as a
Yeah.
commentator, and Willie's in again is just the type of childish humor that I'm into.
Oh yeah, no, we're very very big proponents of childish humor on this podcast for sure. Yeah, Matt Hill's like his just how much control he has over tone, enunciation, and everything. Like clearly being a race caller, that's what they do. But yeah, he's got such a good control. Like he's really good to. I know. I think we cheekily gave him some shit a few weeks ago when he after the Bailey Fritsch stuff, like Bailey Fritsch.
Fritz.
That was you could tell like he immediately once he got that like tap on the shoulder or whatever it was, he cleaned it up real quick and knew it once. It was just like a real 5 minutes of I kind of just forgetting the pronunciation. But yeah, loved his work. I actually did enjoy the call on the night. It was fun having Kingy in there and Matt Hill and kind of an interesting group.
Yeah, Howie was just stirring the drink a little bit.
Yeah.
Just adding bits and pieces here and there.
Howie wasn't aware that
Manny
Liddy was a Fridgie. Like, because Matt Hill, I think, brought it up at one point, and then Howie was just
and he seemed
bewildered.
perplexed by it.
Yeah. He's like,
A fridge technician. He's a mid-season rookie. He had a job before this.
Oh, Howie's been in the song. He forgot
Fridge technician.
Howie's got to have Manny Liddy on the Howie games and have a chat about it. Like it sounds like Howie's going to be fascinated by that.
Well, and Howie brought up the Jackson or Jackman, take your pick thing in regards to Kingy. And yeah, credit to Kingy. He knew he knew he was copping it, but he laughed it away and didn't add to it. And I felt that was the right move because it just allowed everyone a bit of a giggle. And Kingy just copped it on the chin, which was great. Commentary is always good when you're winning, I suppose.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it was
a few good moments there to highlight.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Schadenfreude and them just lamenting how shit Carlton were, and it was nice to be on the other side of that. I think was part of it for me as well.
I agree.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the player of the year votes. You get to go first, and I'm really looking forward to see where you go with them. Now it's time for the CREEDCAST Player of the Year voting. God, even I enjoy that sting when we've won. Alrighty. I found it really, really tough this week. If we Yahtzee this week, I'll almost fall off my chair because I just don't think it's possible because I think there's just too many moving parts in how many guys played well. Jamie, you get to go first. Really intrigued to see where you go with it.
I didn't find it hard from my side of the fence, although I did watch my fair share of replays in the 5 days that have been since the game. So honourable mentions to nearly bloody anyone really, but Farrell, Richards, DBJ, and Boak. Usually only say one or two, but yeah, I mean that's just the level of our supporting act on the night. Like you mentioned with the bottom six, but also the middle portion of our team as well. My vote's very much like the coach's vote, so very boring on my end of the spectrum. So I've got George at 1. Obviously 5 goals is a bit rough to be posted down in the 1 spot, but similarly to the Melbourne game, the service that he was getting on top of his hard work, he's still one of the 5 best players on the night for mine, but yeah, he lands at the 1. My number 2 was on the other side of my argument after that Melbourne game, and that's Asava Radicalizia. Just thought, yeah, his role in the night was 1 vote better, in my opinion. We brought him up before, so, you know, to go into his stats, he had the 13 disposals, 10 of which were contested, and 11 of which were intercepts, like you mentioned, is on a bit of a statistical run at the moment. 84, close to 85% disposal efficiency, 350 odd meters gained, 6 marks, 3 of which were contested, 8 rebound 50s, 8 1%ers. And I mentioned the contested defensive one-on-ones. So between him and Zerk Thatcher, they had 8. He had 5 of those on his own, with the 1 loss. So 4 wins in a defensive one-on-one, which again, the last time I brought that up, it's not a statistic that really jumps off the page a lot of the time. And again, like I mentioned the last time I did so, you know, you get your 1s and 2s and whatnot. There were some 3s. I think Jacob Wiedering had 3, lost 1. So to have 5 and win 4 of them in a kind of a lowly presiding statistic, then credit to him, and it just typifies what he's doing at the moment. My 3 votes goes to Miles Bergman. Amazing game, sensational, 25 disposals, 7 grab ball gets, nearly, you know, 470 meters gain. He kicked the 2 goals, which probably should have got him in the 4 spot, to be honest, but I had Connor Rosie. I just thought another good captain's game from him, all over the ground, impacting. 10 rebound 50s, 10 defensive half pressure acts out of his 13. So he had 30 disposals, 25 were kicks, and they went at 90%. So, excuse me, your rule of thumb with your 30 disposals, if you're going at a high clip, you're worth your weight in gold, and I definitely thought he did. He had the 8 score involvements, 11 marks, and 5 score launches. So, his leadership has just gone from strength to strength since that shift to the half back line, and he is still getting exposure in stoppage, which isn't a surprise. And my best on ground is Zach Butters. He also had the 30 disposals that went at 76%, which is fantastic in its own right. But he had 4 goal assists, 4 score launches, and 12 score involvements, like out of it, and 6 clearances, 9 inside 50s. When you're impacting score that much from your disposals, then for me on the night, just some of the things that he did to contribute to us relishing it and contributing on the scoreboard was an easy decision for Bog on my side of the fence. But interested to see where you go.
Yeah, mine was I almost, it's like I enjoyed it, but like I think you'll understand and listeners will understand what I mean. I didn't enjoy it at the same time because I stressed over it, because I think my top 3 isn't the same as yours, but it's like your reasoning is very, very sound and obvious, and it's just like I made it where I've landed is not where I'd land if I did this 24 hours from now. That's how tough it was to do, but I had Asava as an honorable mention. I had him in my 2 spot at one point, then in the 1 spot, and he's ended up dropping out. So, like, that's just where that's how. I know it was a few weeks ago where you had him in the 2 spot, I had him in the 4 spot. So it's just like it's just like what you want to reward on the day, and it's just like I found it quite tough. And yeah, honorable mentions to so many. I mean, you know, at halftime you would have maybe thought Hugh Jackson or Hugh Jackman is in there. Like that's just, you know, how much of it. And then in the 4th quarter, he makes a pop up into some centre bounce stuff, and you know, you're just like, yeah, you really want to reward stuff like that. But yeah, 5 spots. So yeah, honorable mention to Asava as well. I did get Joe Richards into my 1 spot. I don't know. I think I'm just falling in love with the guy. As I said, I had the drunk thoughts as I was having my 15th pint on Thursday night before I stumbled back to my hotel room that, did we win the trade? Obviously very hyperbolic, and I don't really care. Like, Houston's gone. Joe Richards is ours. That's all I care about. And like, I think just his impact in that first quarter when we made our run in that middle period was just incredible. Like, he was one of the top disposal getters on the field in that time. He had tied for the most score involvements. He was just heavily involved in everything that took that game from being a couple goal lead to suddenly being 5 goals at quarter time and essentially game over with how Carlton were playing, and Joe Richards right there involved in that. So yeah, I had to give it. I just wanted to get him in there somewhere. I had, and yeah, he had 22 disposals, 72% efficiency. He ended up with the 8 score involvements, but again, 5 of those were in the first quarter. So he kind of, I've said this at times over the last couple of years. Sometimes I layer some importance of when your stats are built, and if you've done a lot of the work when the game was there to be won, that is, it's kind of like versus junk time goals like. And Kobe would come on and pour an extra 20 points in, it was great for fun. But, sometimes it was like when a team was already, stop, they're already dead. Yeah, love Joe Richards' role. I got Mitch Georgiades in at the 2 spot. It is crazy, as he said, like to have him down that low when he's kicked 5 goals and essentially part of like a real key part of why we win that game so comfortably. But we had just so many contributors up the board. What's crazy is I've got where I've landed. So, again, I'll say 5, 4, and 3, I think all were best on ground, and this is just where it's landed. I have Butters at 3. I don't know how I've ended up there, but he was one of the 3 best on field, and he does deserve best on ground adulation. I've got Bergman at 4, and I've got Rosie at 5 because I thought we did so much work transitioning from the back half. He got the disposals, he got the disposal efficiency, he got the score involvements, the rebound 50s, the efficiency. He had the
nice intercepts too.
Yeah, the 5 intercepts, 3 1%ers. He had over 500 gained. He had 11 marks. Like an incredible game from a guy. Like, again, his stature, some people, the rest of the AFL world's probably still catching up, but we know that he has the great overhead markability, some sneaky great pressure stuff. Like, I just looked at it as a captain's game. Against a team in Carlton who, while Sam Walsh wasn't out there, there's still just, you have that little there's that little piece in the back of your mind about that discussion that was 2 years ago, and it's now so in the past because it's clearly, and Walsh, there's no fault of his own, some of the injury troubles and whatever, but Rosie's just clearly gone, got a couple of All-Australian blazers as a midfielder already, but now he's reinvented himself, but still gets involved in the middle and in that transition play, and I loved Rosie's game. I'm a Rosie fan, and I couldn't go past some of those numbers for getting. But again, it was Bergman was there at one point, Butters was there at one point. I've shifted it around and just landed there. But again, I think if I did it,
I had Rosie in at 5 at one point as well. So,
it's a good problem to have, but it made me stressed. Like I was almost breaking out.
Butters isn't lacking for votes, so he can cop his whack going down and make it a bit more interesting for the count.
Yeah. I'm going to start posting up now. We're getting close to the end of the year on the Patreon page. Start posting up the actual leaderboard now. So, it may not happen tomorrow, but it will start popping up there. So, to see where that's at, because I know it's a little bit tight. It's a little bit crazier this year with the likes of HORNE-FRANCIS not featuring as much, some players getting injured, or just the up and down nature of our season. It's made it a really interesting count. So looking forward to getting that up for people to have a look at where it's at as we head into the last couple of months of the season. So, speaking, do you have anything else in that game, or it's not? It's a complete opposite to last week. I don't want to burn the tape. I'll watch it again and I'll review it again and do different votes.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, loved it. And it sets up an interesting weekend of football ahead, I would say. Very interesting proposition.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to Brisbane this week to start to get to closing off, and I'm just looking forward to what's going to happen this week. So Saturday evening, 7 o'clock local time. Well, local time to us. I assume that's, I don't know, what's Brisbane? Are they daylight saving? They don't do, are they, where is Brisbane in time? Doesn't matter.
They're half an hour ahead.
They are half an hour ahead. Anyway, it's 7 o'clock for us here watching back in SA for the game on 7:05 on Saturday nights. Brisbane weather looking pretty good on Saturday. Minimum of 10, maximum of 23. Sunny, partly cloudy. Getting cloudier as the day comes on. There might be some rain around on Sunday, but the weather shouldn't be too bad for, especially for wintertime footy. You're getting some of that little bit of more balmy Queensland stuff going on. Just a quick injury updates for both teams. Ryan Burton's a test. Ollie Wines is a test, so that's good because I was talking this time last week about how I was a little bit worried about the fact he'd gone to TBC, but seems like he might be close to back with that knee. So that's the two major ones for us. I don't think Ryan Burton will feature this week. Ollie Wines, Wine would come back in, I would think. But it would be stiff for anyone that's going to get dropped for him, I think, based on what happened last week. But he does deserve to come back in. On the other side of things, Keaton Coleman's out for a couple of weeks, with still 1 to 2 weeks for the Brisbane with a quad injury. Lincoln McCarthy, TBC. I don't have too many other injuries, though, to be honest. Like, they're going okay, Brisbane on the injury front. So, yeah. I think
Jack Payne is an interesting one because he's an important defender for them.
Sorry,
he's also a TBC.
I was, yeah, no, he is very, very important. I thought he was out for a while. Yeah, no, isn't he done for a while?
I think they, that's the way it sounded after he got injured in that match. But he's just listed as a TBC.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just thought.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I keep getting TBC and Test just mixed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did the same thing with Ollie Wines. I just see
That's why
TBC and I just say Test to myself in my own mind. But regardless, they're going to be missing him, and he's a very important player for them. He's emerged quite well this season in particular.
Tom Duday, their injury list is actually, just reading now, looking at this, their injury list is so weird how they've listed it. They don't have players in there. So Tom Duday, trained on Tuesday after coming out of concussion protocols and remains a test for this weekend. That's what's listed in the article, but it's not actually listed on their official injury list that they've updated. So Tom Duday is a test, and I assume they probably want him to come back to take that, like to try to take that spot of Jack Payne. But it's just interesting how they've got that injury list listed, so to speak. I find that really interesting. But yeah, so Payne obviously is a big loss for them. Been key to their fortunes over the last while. Tom Duday hasn't had too much play up there, being that he's pretty much injured the entire time he's been up there. But he is going to be available, I think, this weekend. He was coming out of concussion protocols. I guess they just got to cross the T's and dot the I's as far as his concussion. Everything being clear from that. But yeah, I mean, we'll do the squads later in the week, but I mean, we can't ask for a more sterner test. Going to the Gabba hasn't been a great hunting ground for us, really ever. Possibly apart from that run in the early 2000s where we could go up there and get a result, despite the fact they were very, very good. We did go up there and play them quite well up there, but of late, obviously the final a few years ago. Yeah, I mean, even our fortunes against Brisbane in general, apart from that, Jason HORNE-FRANCIS' first game for the club in that 2023.
Yes.
Yeah, like last year. Obviously, last year was the real boiling point of our season with that heavy loss at home. So, yeah, we couldn't ask for it. And this is a team that is defending a premiership and playing pretty good footy. They're in second place, I think. Right in the mix, though. There's a lot of teams in that mix, and Brisbane have been up and down this year, though. So there is... You do go, if we go up there with our best brand of footy and do apply ourselves, they are not a complete item at the moment. So that's what gives me a little bit of, yes, it could be stupid hope because we are a team in the bottom half that is very, very long shot at even touching finals. They are a lock for finals, more or less. Just depends on where their positioning ends up, and they're the defending premiers. But Melbourne went up there and got a win a few weeks back. Other teams, I can't
That's
remember.
right.
They are gettable.
They drew with North Melbourne. Is another one that they let slip.
Yeah, so they're gettable, which is weird to say. Even though I think it's going to be a stern test for us, they are gettable, I think.
Yeah. And GWS, I think, also beat them at the Gabba.
Yes, they did.
I
think GWS,
if I remember correctly.
I think GWS, if they go to the Gabba or the GMHBA, they're a decent chance, it seems. Like they've got good record on the ground, I think, at the moment.
So, and this is the thing with Port Adelaide, because I've had a similar thought. Like, it could be false hope after a win against a hapless Carlton side, breeding a bit of positivity.
We've got you.
But when you factor in... I need it. I need it right now. But when you consider those few little factors that you mentioned, it would be a very Ken Hinkley thing to do, going up and breaking a bit of a hoodoo that we have at the Gabba, and knowing that they've had some performances this year that they wouldn't be proud of, and particularly the couple at home that they've dropped to teams that they would have been favourites for, definitely against Melbourne, and I believe they were against GWS because that was the week after we played them, I think. And the week after we played GWS, that is, and beat them.
They had like 11 goals between Cadman and Hogan.
Just total flipping of fortunes for GWS. But also the other factor of they've pounded Geelong in Geelong, then gone on the bye, and are now returning from the bye. So how that will affect proceedings will also be another interesting layer to all of it as well. The first quarter will be very intriguing, but yeah, there is a little bit of blind hope, and certainly if we were to pull this off, it would just create a little extra buzz with the second half of the season. The odds are heavily out of our favour, making a finals appearance, but if anything, it will further wildcard round or playing round chat. If we would, because they had the top 9 is coming up against the bottom 9 this weekend. Every game is a top 9 versus a bottom 9er. And they had it on AFL 360 last night, and Jared said, someone will slip up. Well, we're going to get at least one, if not two, upsets this weekend. And it's just which top 9 side will be the one to do it. And yeah, like I said, it'd be a very Ken Hinkley thing to go up to the Gabba on a road trip with potentially the strongest side that we've picked all year, and just snatch and grab a win out of nowhere. But I'm sure we'll all be tipping Brisbane in our official tips just to offer some insurance.
Yeah, no, I think that'll be pretty obvious. It's like Brisbane at the Gabba, defending premiers. Yeah, I'll pick Brisbane. But yeah, there is those little snippets of hope you can have. I guess the big two that we're probably thinking will come in if they are indeed fit in Ollie Wines, and more intriguingly is Jack Lukosius. He's not on the injury list at all now, and he's played a game Sandful. I mean, do we finally go back? Does Vicentini get dropped? And just to finish off, who's your prediction for, like, if Ollie Wines is coming in, who's getting dropped and who's getting dropped for Lukosius?
Going to be some harsh calls. Unfortunately, Hugh Jackson probably. It's tough. It's tough, isn't it? Logan Evans was the sub, so he's viewed as the 23rd best player, but it's positioning as well. We've got a forward and a mid potentially coming in, so you would dare say that Vicentini would probably go out because he was more forward in that mix, and we're bringing in a forward. Ollie Wines is an intriguing one because he's an inside mid, and I would say that Hugh Jackson and Manny Liddy, just due to experience, are probably the ones on the firing line. But Liddy is a winger, and Hugh Jackson is a bit of obviously a different body shape and a different role to Ollie Wines. But yeah, I think they're in the business of picking the best 23 players they have available, within reason, of course. So yeah, some unlucky names going out, because I do think it'll be just the two. I don't think there'll be any other surprise inclusions.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I don't think anyone else.
Two obvious ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's if Ollie or both of them get through this week's training.
True.
Which more so on the Ollie side of things is a little bit more ominous. Jack Lukosius, for all intents and purposes, seems to be a fait accompli at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, as we said at the top of the show, Ken was seemingly, at least he's saying, he was very, very close to picking him for last week. So, providing there wasn't any further complications from his game, and to further expand on what Ken was saying as well, he was saying he's in pretty good nick now. It was, the knee trouble is a fair way in the distance now. It was actually a back issue that came from some weights training or something like that. That was actually the reason he was out the last few weeks anyway. So the knee grumbles a long past issue, and it was just a back issue, and he's apparently raring to go. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Lukosius back. Like, I still haven't even seen him in person yet because I missed the Richmond game. By the way, did you notice another Mark Prosciutto faux pas in the commentary was just like mentioned that Jack they haven't been able to play Lukosius all year. I was like, he's played. Like, he has played. You've hit your cough button again.
I certainly have. I'll let Rue off because he's rounding down.
Yeah, exactly.
One game in 3 minutes. So yeah,
it was very much
let Rue
like
off.
I'm a Port Nuffy, and I'm going to correct the crow that played 300 games because I can.
Yeah, and let me wipe these Cheeto crumbs from my stomach while I say it.
I do love flaming hot Cheetos. Yeah,
make a good crumb as well for some chicken. Flaming hot Cheetos.
Yeah. Well, that's going to send me to the barbecue again. That's a very
exactly.
I've seen
Is that an air fryer turning on?
Yeah, I've seen people do, like, you can do all sorts, like just like Cheeto crumbing on like macaroni and cheese and stuff like that as well. Like, you can do so much with it. Andrea just puts them in sandwiches. She'll make a turkey and mayonnaise sandwich or something like that.
Chip buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nice little chip.
Oh, right.
Yeah, she'll throw like flaming hot Cheetos into a sandwich, like, or whatever, like anything she's made. Flaming hot Cheetos are a key staple of our household. And the in-laws over in the US as well. But yeah, I think that wraps it up for me. You got anything else, Jamie? Or are you looking forward to getting into more footy this week?
Thanks everyone for consuming what we do every week. We love you all. We appreciate the support, and looking forward to hopefully another cracking game this weekend. But before that, we'll have our team show on Thursday night recording for a Friday drop.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it as well. It's going to be another intriguing squad show, I think, with the ins and outs that we've just kind of tried to predict. So yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks for listening as always. Always good to come on and chat with you all about a win. Hopefully another one coming for next week. Nothing more to say.
Can the pair.
Can the pair.
And they could never